Yes, that is a red tractor.
And no, sorry to disappoint all of you, it's not ours.
That pretty case quad track belongs to Nutrien. They're a small mom and pop retailer. I'm sure none of you have ever heard of them. And they are custom applying anhydrous ammonia for us out here today on our farm.
To clear the air before an inevitable wave of questions in the comments, yes, we have the tractors to pull a toolbar ourselves. However, we do not think that the couple of dollars an acre that we would save by applying it ourselves is really worth the hassle or the risk of dealing with the anhydrous ammonia. It is a dangerous chemical inherently, and it's nice to not have to do it and let them worry about it. Speaking of which way is the wind out of? Strongly out of the south. Okay, that's good to know when you're dealing with this stuff. That white cloud of gas you see when the toolbar lifts up on the end is the residual anhydrous ammonia in the knives vaporizing as it reaches standard temperature and pressure.
When it's stored in a pressurized container, like these white tanks here, it's actually a liquid. But when it hits the atmosphere, it turns into a gas.
The gaseous state of this nitrogen product as it's applied to farms does require special considerations for ground conditions and of course safety. First and foremost, you need the ground dry enough that you can form a berm to hold the gas in the ground for it to convert into ammonium. At the same time though, to make that conversion, you need H2O or adequate moisture because the NH3 as it comes into the soil does grab a hydrogen ion, become NH4, which is ammonium. It is positively charged and can bind to the soil profile because of that. Nitrogen is one of the 3 essential nutrients and arguably the most important of all of them.
Plants need nitrogen for cellular development, photosynthesis, and a handful of other important tasks.
Any non-leguminous field crop that is grown requires supplemental nitrogen being applied. Legumes get to skip this part of the meal plan because they have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria in the soil. They nodulate on the roots of our soybean plants, and subsequently they can fixate their own nitrogen, deeming this an unnecessary practice for those crops. However, corn loves nitrogen, and corn is king.
Our operation certainly does believe in split applying nitrogen to reduce any kind of excessive losses through leaching. We also use a nitrification inhibitor to slow down the soil bacteria and enzymes that help convert ammonium into nitrate, which is leachable.
Depending on the yield goals for our individual farm, we shoot from anywhere from 200 to 230 pounds of actual N per acre. That being said, this pass right here is about 115 pounds of actual N, of course with an N-Serve product added to it, a nitrification inhibitor to slow down any kind of microbial activity, which is probably likely because it is 70 degrees outside. It may be November, but it's still warm. We don't want to wait though. We like to get this on in the fall. Do we run a risk of losing some? Maybe a little bit. Typically once the calendar reaches November, it's cooled off quite a bit, but it's uncharacteristically warm right now, 70 degrees. So we are running a little bit of a risk of any kind of nitrification happening because the higher the temperatures are, the more microbial activity that's going to be going on. That's where the N-Serve comes in to hopefully limit any kind of that activity.
Ironically, the farm he's running on right now also happens to have an anhydrous pipeline right through the middle of it. Don't worry everyone, this is an equal opportunity farm. There is a John Deere quad track running as well.
As opposed to focusing on the agronomic side of the nitrogen equation, which I normally do, today we're going to try something a little bit different, and I'm going to talk more about the economics of nitrogen and fertilizer. To be more specific, I want to talk about why it is so expensive now to put on nitrogen products. Nitrogen coincidentally happens to be one of the most abundant elements in our atmosphere. However, it is extremely difficult to synthesize that product. Get out of here, fly. Go, go. This is a teaching demonstration. In the 20th century, 2 scientific geniuses, Fritz Haber and Carl Bosch, perfected the Haber-Bosch process. One of them focused more on the scientific side, the other one came in and refined the commercial production of nitrogen. Arguably one of the only good things that the Germans did in the early 20th century. This is a very simple chemical equation representing the process of synthesizing nitrogen. To put it as simple as possible, to extract nitrogen gas from the atmosphere, you need more hydrogens, you need a lot of heat and pressure, a little bit of magic in there as well, and ultimately the goal is to end up with NH3. I'm not going to talk too much about this process just because it is extremely interesting. There's a really good book actually called The Alchemy of Air, which talks about the developments of this and the importance to the world for feeding everyone in our growing population. I highly recommend you go check it out if you're into this kind of stuff. Let's talk about the current issues with this equation. Air is not the problem. That's all around us. It's abundant. Natural gas is the problem. The price of natural gas is extremely important to the overall success of this equation from a financial standpoint. As a matter of fact, I've read that 5% of the entire world's usage of natural gas goes to ammonia production. Due to global political instability, Russia and Ukraine, natural gas prices in Europe have soared. In the United States, the natural gas price is actually not that big of a deal because, although many would disagree, we are actually relatively energy independent, especially compared to our European neighbors. As a matter of fact, most European countries are not only energy reliant on another country, they just so happen to be reliant on Russia, which is a catch-22 considering that the Russian-Ukrainian war is causing major global instability and, of course, sky-high natural gas prices in Europe. A combination of their political agenda over the last few years, this is not a political commentary, by the way, and this Russian-Ukrainian war has resulted in natural gas prices reaching the point in Europe where they cannot even afford to produce nitrogen in a cost-effective manner. This negative economic output in Europe actually resulted in many of the large producers of nitrogen just completely shutting down their plants. These production issues in Europe have wide-spanning consequences across the entire globe. Herein lies the issue. Europe needs nitrogen. With the majority of their nitrogen producers not willing to operate at a loss, they have to import global nitrogen supplies. This really represents the downside to the global markets that we deal with. If a nitrogen producer can take any of these easily shippable byproducts of ammonia to Europe, they are either going to choose to do that for a larger profit, or a US consumer or farmer is going to have to pay an equally comparable price to buy that tonnage or that nitrogen product minus any kind of shipping cost to Europe, resulting in a supply issue and, of course, a demand issue. Moral of the story is that Europe's ambitions to be a renewable energy paradise and become energy dependent on every other nation that exports energy has resulted in them being backed into one of the worst corners we've seen in a long time, ultimately resulting in everyone else, especially us here in the United States, paying more money. How much more money? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here are some numbers to put price inflation in perspective for all of you. In the fall of 2020, which was for the 2021 corn crop, we paid $425 per ton of ammonia. That equates to about 26 cents per pound of actual N. In 2021, for the 2022 crop, we paid $750 per ton, which is 46 cents per pound of nitrogen applied. That is a 56% increase year over year. In 2022, for the 2023 crop, which is right now, we're paying $1,175 per ton. That is 72 cents per pound of N. That is a 63% increase year over year compared to 2021. That is a very big difference. As you can see right here, for a 225 pound N program, in 2021, it would have cost $58 an acre. 2022, you're looking at $102 per acre. And in 2023, you're looking at $161 per acre. Those are hard numbers. There is no denying that things have not gotten more expensive on the farm. I know a lot of you watching this video are thinking, yeah, but grain prices have shot up enough that it shouldn't matter. Well, you guys are wrong. There is a $100 per acre difference right there from 2021 to 2023. on a 225 bushel corn crop. That is over 50 cents per bushel in price increase, completely wiped out by inflation and input cost. And that is just our nitrogen. We have phosphorus and potassium to apply. Our equipment is getting more and more expensive every year. The cost of borrowing money to finance your operation has skyrocketed. Insurance premiums continue to go up. Real estate taxes go up as well. Not to mention that the cost of living for your family has gone up more than all of this combined. I'm not trying to make you guys pity us because we make plenty of money farming, but it does put in perspective what is going on in the global marketplace. It is worth mentioning that farmers are price takers, not price setters when it comes to fertilizer. There's maybe 5 companies in the world that are the end-all be-all when it comes to nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. If you really crunch the numbers, it's almost comical to view it from an economic standpoint. Year in and year out, we play with an increasingly larger pile of money to put our crop in the ground. We may get a marginally higher return because of that. On the opposite side of the coin, inflation has diminished our buying power to the point where we're working for the same amount of money, if not less. It just has a larger digit on it. Well, we've managed to be extremely unproductive this morning. While we've been extremely busy doing nothing, everyone's favorite farm employee, Sister Katie, has been running the vertical till. It's about midday and she has something to go do, so we're going to switch out and I'm going to run it. It appears that everything on the 2660 is in one piece, so we're going to keep rolling. Oh man. This vertical till does one heck of a job, but man does it pull hard. Neighbors to the west are ripping their soybean stubble. They got 2 tractors running. Katie pretty much had all this 100-acre field worked, so I just get to do the fun part. That's the ends. Just finished working this north 100 acres. The south 45 is where we had that high-yielding Bex corn. When you have high yields, typically you have a lot of residue, so it's a good thing we're out here with a tillage tool. Helps size that residue, start the decomposition process. Everything seems to be surviving the journey thus far, so we're going to get back after it. Due to the amount of plant material left after harvest, it is preferable to work your corn stalks at an angle. It seems to chop everything up a lot better that way. I don't think that's supposed to look like that. Why are you not spinning? Huh. Must have been a fluke deal. It is awesome how much ground you cover with one of these vertical tills. Already got another 45 acres knocked out. This thing can really turn the dirt over. Ought to warm up quick next spring. Time to fold up and move to the next field in Mattoon. It looks like we're only going to be taking a little bit of dirt with us, not very much. Everything's still in one piece, so we're going to head into town. Oh man, it is hard to be disappointed with that finish. Trying to be a good neighbor and not throw mud all over the road. Hopefully most of it's off by the time we get off the rock here. Farming in town is strange. I feel like there's got to always be a set of eyes on me at any point in time. To be fair, I can't blame anyone for looking. I am sitting in a very obnoxiously loud and green-colored fishbowl in the middle of a field in the middle of town. 99% of this field is working out perfectly, and then there's like 1% out in the middle that is far from perfect. It's a little bit soft. This is the spot in question. You can tell where I had to lift up and go around a mud hole there. The hard
part is that it doesn't even look wet until you're standing on top of it and you're spinning your tires. I've been running this disc at maximum depth all day, which is 6 inches. To try and get through some of these wet spots, I've backed it out of the ground about 1.5 inches. So we're around 4.5 inches. Hopefully that removes enough pulling requirements so we can slide through these wet holes. The real question is, how close can we get to the wet hole without having to go around it? So far, so good. Do we dare try to cross that again? We're spinning. Come on. Okay, we made it. Actually, make that 2 spots. There's standing water right there. Unless we get stuck, we should be done soon. I need to pee, but there's literally no privacy in this field. Okay, this field is done with the exception of 2, maybe 3, even 4 wet spots. The only unfortunate part is that there's mud on my tires and there's really no good spot to get it off other than just the pavement leaving town. So I apologize in advance for any mess I made. Going as slow as possible. I'm so sorry. You hate to see that. Going everywhere. Oh, letting out a sigh of relief because I'm finally off of the highway. That is what I'd like to call a no-win scenario for me. I'm sure at least one motorist was disgruntled with the debris I left on the road, but there was really nothing I could do. That is one of the added complexities of farming within city limits. You have to deal with a lot more of the population than you do on some of these back country roads that we farm on. Almost home. There's no doubt that this thing pulls hard because we have maybe 1/3 of a tank of fuel and we only work 200 acres. So there's a lot of action going on behind here. That's going to be it for me, folks. We're back safe and sound at the fuel tank. There's really not a whole lot of our ground that still needs tillage work. We have some more to do with the vertical till, and then we also have some soybean stubble over at Lerna that had some water issues that we're hoping to either run the inline ripper on or the disc ripper, depending on how we feel that morning. Anyways, I appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!